We have also been playing, well, I don't know if you have, but I've been playing a lot more Hogwarts Legacy.
I've been playing, but I have not finished it like you have.
I'm done with it now.
Done it. What did you think? Was it magical?
No.
Sure.
It's not a bad game. It's just not a good one, I don't think. I think we spoke about this a little bit last week, but it's a game that really captures the aesthetic and feeling of the property, the Harry Potter, Potterverse stuff. Like, it looks the part all the time, and it's got all these sort of callbacks that you'd expect. Like, I think last week we spoke briefly about the intro, but like you do the whole sorting hat ceremony, you get to choose your house, you get to see your dorms, this and that. You get to attend all your classes, so you partake in duels in Defense Against the Dark Arts, or you pull out a screaming mandrake from a pot in herbology. Like all the little moments from the films that you like, oh, that's cute. Yeah, I remember that. That's pretty fun that I get to experience that again. Those are all there, and they're done really well, I think. They will absolutely put a smile on your face if you are well invested into this universe, and that's kind of what you want to see. I think where it all starts to break down for me is just pretty much everything else. I think it's an extremely bland open world. When you're not exploring Hogwarts Castle, which is phenomenal, like that castle and its design and its intricacies is just really, really good, really fun to explore and like pick apart. You go out of those grounds and you're kind of left with Hogsmeade as another big city to kind of explore, and that's just a hub for merchants, really. There's not much else going on there. And then there's these little villages interspersed around the really big map, and the rest is just like open fields and forests. And it's got all the things that you would expect from a modern open world, like enemy camps to clear out. You've got little side activities like finding telescopes for your astronomy class, or finding places to look for constellations for your astronomy class. You've got little Merlin puzzle trials that you actually have to do to extend your inventory size, which is obscene to me because you start with 20 slots for all of your gear, and you fill that up almost immediately because the game is giving you so much gear all the time. So you have to like go and find these Merlin trials out in the wild, and they're just the same 2 or 3 puzzle templates repeated over and over and over again. So it's a lot of that stuff. It's like if you've played an open world game recently, if you played an Assassin's Creed recently, it's a lot of that, a lot of repetition just to kind of make things seem like there's a lot to do, when in fact the quality of the things that there is really low, I think. So it really depends. If you don't play a lot of open world games a lot of the time, and I suspect a lot of the people playing this game don't, because there's just so many people playing this game that I don't think it's the general, it's not the sort of person that buys every single open world game every year. It's the person who buys 1 or 2 games a year. Then, you probably won't find any issue with that because you'll have something to play for a very long time. I just think that there are so many ways that sort of content could have been made way more interesting to kind of like engage with. Then there's also just a bunch of systems that I just don't understand. Like, this game is designed around the idea of being a loot-based action game. So you get gear that has numerical values on it and rarities, and not unlike a Diablo or a Destiny. So there's this idea that you're trying to min-max everything, and that is supported by these mechanics where in the Room of Requirement, which is sort of like a little player hub that you can alter and make look however you want, there's a device there that allows you to uncover unidentified gear, which is insane to me in a single player game. Like, why would you have unidentified gear? Just tell me what the gear is. For example, like in Destiny, unidentified gear makes sense because you keep going back to the hub after each mission. And because it's a multiplayer server-based game, like they're constantly rolling new traits for gear, and that's why it's unidentified, because they make that decision when you choose to identify. In a single player game, it makes no sense.
Doesn't matter,
like,
yeah.
It just fucking show it to me. Like, anyway. You've also got like a loom where you can use like animal parts like feathers and stuff like that to upgrade your gear. And you've got this whole like vivarium where you keep animals. You literally go out into the world and you're like, cool, these poachers are caging animals and like stealing parts from them. How are we going to stop this? Well, I'm going to take this bag and I'm going to steal the animals first and put them in my own big cage. I don't care how big my own big cage. Also, that cage can only hold so many animals. So if I can't actually put any more in there, I can go to someone in Hogsmeade and just sell them. And I'm like, what?
It's a very.
What? Are we the bad guys? What's going on?
Are we the bad guys? Yeah. About the poaching.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, how is this seen as a viable like alternative to anyway? So you have these animals there, and as you care for them, they give you supplies that they can then be used to upgrade your gear. So it's like this whole like system of like, cool, ideally you're looking for a way to min-max your gear because some gear has traits and you can upgrade those traits and you can add new traits to certain things and you can buy items that give you new traits to add to gear and whatever. And you're like, cool, I'm going to get really invested in like upgrading my favorite coats. And then you get a new coat and it's better. And you're just like, well, why did I spend all that time and money just doing that? Like, there is no reason to engage with any of these systems because the game is so persistently giving you new gear. Yeah. And because it's also a single player game, so you're going to hit a ceiling. Like, there is no end game multiplayer that you can like sit there and min-max your gear for. That's what Destiny and Diablo and games of this ilk do. That's the whole reason for these things. It's not for the single player component. When you play Diablo, you know, you've got all this gear and systems to upgrade it, but you're hardly doing any of that until you're done, with the game, and you're just running dungeons over and over again and finding a way to make your player better because he's hit like a level cap. There's none of that in Harry Potter because it's a single player game. Like, I do not understand why these exist here at all. And what's frustrating about it is that you can't really sidestep them in some cases because some quest lines require you to do things that engage with these systems. So like some quests for professors force you to go and craft or certain potions or grow certain plants, which you can buy as well, but they're like really expensive to buy. And money seems like very hard to come by in this game, strangely enough. But then those sorts of actions have like real world timers attached to them as well, like growing a venomous tentacular, whatever, some plant that I can throw out to enemies that spits venom at them. It takes 15 minutes to grow, like, and cultivate. So
real life time.
I'm just like, what? Like, and the Wiggenweld potion, your basic healing potion, like that one is the easiest to craft. It takes 15 or 30 seconds
it's 30
to craft,
seconds.
and you can only do one at a time.
Yeah,
I'm just like, why? Like, what ppurpose does it serve to make me wait here 30? Because I'm not going to go away and come back
it's too
after
short.
30 seconds. Yeah, because I can only craft one. I can't batch them. You know, if you can upgrade your station in the rumor requirement to have 3 cauldrons, so you can put 3 on at once. But the same thing. Am I going to go away for a minute and a half and come back? Or for 30 seconds and come back? Like, what you're doing is just making the player wait 30 seconds and just sit there and watch it. Like,
it's like real life potions.
It's so dumb. I just do not understand the purpose or the thinking behind something like that. Again, in a multiplayer game, the sort of artificial timers are there to kind of, you know, when you're playing something like Destiny, you're going out on a mission and coming back to a hub. So every 30 minutes, you're returning to that place because you have to. You know what I mean? So it's fine if you put things on. I don't think there's any sort of time-based crafting in Destiny, but it would make sense if you're waiting for something. You're like, cool, I'm going to go finish this strike and come back. Harry Potter, it's like, do I really want to come back to the room requirement every 30 minutes? Like, I'm out here doing missions, exploring the open world. Like, it clashes so much with, hey, you should be going out and doing things that are fun or just picking apart this world. But also, there's this room you should probably fast travel to, like,
all the time.
Often.
Yeah.
Like, it's just silly. I didn't really understand. I didn't understand that. And that kind of, it permeates the whole game because now that your whole sort of open world structure and system is based off of this like loot idea and min-maxing, everything else needs to be built to support it, but it also doesn't feel like it is. Like the combat never gets challenging to the point where I feel like I always have to stay on top of my gear.
Yeah.
You know, if enemies who were on the same level as me were giving me such grief that I'd be like, okay, let me think about my gear, you know, to get an upper hand, fine. But I can take on enemies like 4 or 5 levels above me, and if I'm just relatively smart with the way I dodge, they're not a problem. Like, yeah, they're a bit spongy because, hey, they have way more health than damage I can deal out, but they're not an issue.
No.
And it almost seems like the game is aware of this, because then it starts gating main missions based on your level. And it doesn't even allow you to start a mission if your level is not the same as what it requires, which is very counterintuitive to, I think, modern RPG design, where it will allow you to do it. It like warns you. Like, again, I'm basing a lot of this off of me playing The Witcher, which is an open world game from 2015. Like, I can start a quest that is 10 levels above me. It's like, cool, whatever. You're gonna die, you will probably die. Like, the odds of you dying very high. But, you know, it allows people to do this thing in The Witcher called I think the community calls it the Death March, where they just like they take on really, really hard missions and challenges at very low levels to try and complete the game as quickly as possible. And like, that's totally possible. Here, Hogwarts is just like, no, you can't do that. You have to be at this level, which means you have to go and do all the side content. You have to go and do all the stuff that you actually don't want to do to continue the game. And it's just like, why? Like, I don't know. So like, the combat initially seemed really fun to me because you're juggling enemies and you're shooting spells at them in the air. But after I unlocked all the spells, it became more cumbersome because you can only equip 4 spells at a time in a single like loadout.
Yeah.
And then as you upgrade your talents, you can unlock additional loadouts. I think there's a maximum of 4. So you can have 16 spells equipped at a time. So firstly, you have more than 16 spells by the end of it. You have like 20 something. So you can never have everything equipped at one time, which is strange. But then also when you're in combat, you constantly have to like hold R2, press a button on the directional pad to change to a different loadout, and then it changes what spells are mapped to your current face buttons at that time. So you have to remember the order of which you've put all the spells in all four layouts, and then you have to kind of like cluster them so that the 4 that you have in each loadout kind of synergize together, which is a relatively fun exercise. Like, I'm like, cool, when I switch to this loadout, I'm going to fire off this combo, or when I switch to this one, I'm going to do that combo. But man, it just makes combat so cumbersome by that point.
It's not fluid.
It's really not fluid. It's like, because you're using the same button to like ready your spells that you are to like change loadouts. So it just feels inorganic. I don't like how it feels at all. And it ultimately ended up making me just stick to like 1 or 2 loadouts as opposed to using all 4. And then on top of it, the enemies never really evolved to the point where I had to change. Like, the enemies you see in the first 10 hours are the enemies you're going to see for the rest of the game. Like spiders, humans, goblins, wild dogs.
Right. Poachers.
And then those little bad monsters that only die when you hit them with fire.
Then like fairy.
I think that's mostly it. You know, you get a few here and there, and there's some bosses that are straight up repeated at times. Like, I played a boss in one main quest line, and then a few hours later I did another one of those, because you have to do like 4 of these trials as part of the main story, and the boss in the second one was identical to the one in the first, and identical in the way of they only have 2 attacks. This one only had 2 attacks. I was like, what is going on here?
Well,
I hope that gives context to why I think this game is just fine. Like, I don't think it's bad. I think people are having a good time with it, and that is entirely okay.
I
and
think
people are enjoying the setting and whatever. But I just find this really, it is a lot like a lot of modern open world games, and it's just not interesting. I just don't find it interesting or groundbreaking, or I don't understand why this game is getting the scores that it's getting, put it that way. I don't get it. Like, people are entitled to their opinion, but I do not understand that at all.
Well, I'm not done with the game. I'm only I'm about 7-8 hours in. But I think I agree with you on most of the stuff, only because like I'm not, I haven't been exposed to the game as long as you have. So yeah, to echo what you said, I think they nailed the setting. Like if someone like me who's read the books like countless times over the years, watched the movies, it feels really cool to walk around Hogwarts. And like I've made a point of, I try not to use, like, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I'm trying to learn the castle because I want to know what it feels like to know what like how it's laid out. How do I get from A to B without having
how a student would navigate it?
Yeah, how would it? And it's really cool that I can do that because they've really like, for the lack of a better expression, like handcrafted, hand carved this whole hub. It's very cool. But I think also what you mentioned earlier, that's like nail on the head, is that a lot of people playing this game are not, and I use this term not like in a negative way, but like not a hardcore gamer. Like it's somebody who, they game, whatever, but they don't play like Assassin's Creed or a typical open world RPG. So for them, it is like, oh my God, like this is a Harry Potter game. Like I can't believe there's so much content stuffed into it. Wow, they've thought of everything. But when you, like, this is the only way I can frame it. If this wasn't called Hogwarts Legacy, if this was just it's a wizard open world game. Cool. You get to go to a castle. Like I know we would always compare it to Harry Potter, but just imagine there was no connection to the IP at all. I don't know if it would have reviewed as well,
not at all.
If
not at all.
Or if people would have showered it with as much praise. But I think that's why it's getting the high numbers, because like there is a level of nostalgia and love for this franchise from like countless people. Like I'm dying to see what the sales numbers on this are, because I think it's going to be massive. Like
it's going to be gigantic. It's
going to be way bigger than any of us think it will be, because the number of, I mean, you've said it yourself, not on the podcast, but the number of people we've both seen playing this game. Like I didn't even realize you gave two shits about this franchise at all. I know friends who like went out and bought. I'm like, I didn't even know you liked Harry Potter. Like, but I think just because even on that front, just the buzz around the game, like for good or bad, it's got people going like, oh, like there's this open world Hogwarts game. Like, let me try it out. I think it's gonna sell hugely. But yeah. So
no, I think this is going to be a success for Avalanche Studios and Warner Brothers, and that's totally fine.
So I don't know where the story goes, but I'm 100% sure there'll probably be a sequel in some capacity, whether it's the same wizard or same story or another setting. Like I don't see them not following up with a sequel at some point. Maybe not a strictly open world game, but a Hogwarts or a game set in this universe, because they'll go like, oh my God.
I'm pretty sure they're going to follow this up with something. For sure. For sure.
So just from my side, like I'm still enjoying the game. But again, I'm only like 7 to 8 hours in, and I've really enjoyed. I mean, even watching Lenska play, just like walking out of Hogwarts and going, oh, I can walk to Hogsmeade. That's really cool. Like,
can you fly a broom yet?
I can't, but I've seen Lenska fly a broom. Yeah. I'm like, it's cool that there's this whole world here. Like it's everything in the book, how I've imagined it, but now I can actually walk through it. Like that's neat.
That part of it is really cool.
Even like I know we can criticize the quest and the mechanics, but I'm still somewhat amazed that having played it now, that they've made it work and that it's a Hogwarts game. Like they've found a way to structure it, because I wouldn't have known like how to do a game like this. Whether it's good or bad, like I know people will get mileage depending on, like we said, if they've played a lot of RPGs or not. But yeah, I'm keen to keep chipping away, and I'll check back in and do I agree with you, or do I go, you mad? This is game of the year content here. But
listen, I've been seeing people say that, and I'm just like, okay.
But again, it's such a thing, and like again, I throw this out. I don't mean to be like an elitist, like, oh, you're not a hardcore gamer, but I'm like, people who I've seen making such comments on, but I don't know, like how many games do you play that you can just throw out like this is game of the year?
But that's also important context to keep in mind, is like we come at it from a space where we are playing. We are in probably the upper 1% of how many games we play compared to the rest of people. And, it, like as a critic, do you take that into account in your criticism? I don't think you can, because you're still critiquing like the product in question. But it is a good thing to keep in mind for context. Like when people go, why are so many people playing this game? It's like, well, yeah, it makes sense. Like a lot of people don't play a lot of games, and when they see it attached to a high profile property, this is why so many games are coming out attached to properties like Marvel's Avengers or, Harry Potter. And why I think it was Jeff Grubb who said recently on a podcast that shit's going to happen more because it draws in people like this. That is the hook. You know what I mean? As opposed to an Assassin's Creed, which it being a mega franchise that it doesn't have that sort of draw anymore. But slap Harry Potter on a game that is quite similar in structure to a lot of modern Assassin's Creeds, and it's suddenly a very big thing again because it feels novel because of the setting and the way it interprets mechanics.
Well, in the same vein, that's why we're seeing more gaming-based TV shows. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
The last of the best example is The Witcher. When that came out, that just put The Witcher 3. Not that The Witcher 3 was never on the map, but it put it back on the map.
Yeah, the sales just skyrocketed
whole
again.
New audience going, oh shit, I can play a game based on. Well, I can play the game that this show's based on, and it's the same for The Last of Us. People watching the show going, oh shit, this is based on a game. I want to play it. I want to see what the sales numbers look like now.
I would say the majority of people I've spoken to about The Last of Us do not even know it's based on a game. Like when I say that, I'm like, oh, do you know it's based on a game? They're like, what? Really? It's like no one, like we live in such a weird, like very big, like video games are not this niche in your basement type of thing, bubble anymore. But it's still a bubble.
It's still
and people exist outside of that bubble. So it's good to keep in mind. And listen, Hogwarts is almost definitely going to do well commercially. Critically, it's done well, better than I expected, to be honest.
Same.
But I do think not everyone has to agree on the bar of quality that means, and by the same token, not everyone has to think it's bad. I think it's very average, and that's about it. That's as much as I can say about it. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm happy to be done playing it. That's literally all I can say about it.
My goodness. How many hours do you think you put in, just for interest's sake?
About 30.
Okay, that's. I think that's about.
It's a long game. And there's loads more to do. Like I think people can double that number easily.
Yeah, I was going to say. I think 60, 70 is probably the ballpark for doing everything in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, there's a shit ton you can do if you really want to. Is all of that stuff engaging? Your mileage may vary there. I don't think so, but yeah.